Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Wherever Is Your Heart, a Moonlighters Novella, by Anita Kelly, narrated by Yvonne Roberts and Aven Shore. 1. June. Miracles, as a whole, had never had much luck in finding me, but tonight, when I walked into a jam-packed Moonlight cafe and found my seat open, well, all right, maybe it was only a small miracle, but damn, I'd take it. The Moonlight Cafe, or Moonie's, as it was known to us regulars, was often hit or miss in terms of crowd size. It was a dive on the north edge of the city, a funny joint out in the middle of nowhere. The queers liked it here, and queers were flighty. Some nights it was fully alive, drunken, frenetic bodies crammed onto the dance floor, folks with far more energy than me singing their hearts out, for better or worse, to karaoke. Some nights it was half dead. I liked it either way, because Mal was always here. Tonight, though, was Saturday night during Pride, and Moonie's was guaranteed to be packed to its rainbow-glittered gills at Pride. Yet, even knowing this full well, I had left my house later than intended, changing my outfit 3 times like a damn teenager. Like it mattered what I wore. All my outfits looked the same anyway, and Mal didn't seem like the type of woman who cared about whether the flannel I wore was maroon or forest green. But even though I showed up late, even though Moonie's was already pulsing with a live wire energy by the time I arrived, my favorite seat, at the far end of the bar, close to the door, where I had the best view of the room, where I could watch what was happening on the dance floor and watch Mal at the same time, was empty amidst the crush of people waiting at the bar for their drinks, like it was waiting for me, a beacon in the gay desert. I sunk onto its cracked leather like a stone. Guess I'd have to go through with it then. Or, the universe would be mad at me, or whatever. Or I'd simply have to go on for the next 365 days again, knowing I was a coward. Only a second after I made myself comfortable in my possibly miraculous seat, Mal turned toward the door from where she stood at the till and caught my eye. The left corner of her mouth tilted up the tiniest fraction, barely noticeable, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening for a blink. Mal was a formidable woman. Her blonde hair, streaked through more and more with silver gray each time I saw her, was almost entirely buzz-cut, and I had never seen her wear anything other than black, with the occasional exception of a dark-washed, boot-cut pair of jeans. Her eyes were steel, both in their arresting, icy blue color, and the way she used them, like lasers, ready to cut down anyone who dared come at her with even a hint of bullshit. Even when the bar was busy, like it was tonight, even when I knew we wouldn't get many opportunities to talk, it was still always worth it to come to Moonie's whenever I was home, if only for the opportunity to watch all the patrons approach this bar and quake in their boots at the sight of her. Nothing in the world turned me on more. Except when she looked at me and gave me that mouth tilt. Because Mal didn't smile. I had only ever seen her move her lips that way for me. It was possible, of course, that there were other women she tilted her mouth for, on the countless nights and weeks when I was on the road and someone else occupied this seat, but I didn't like to think about that. My life was one of small, simple pleasures, and pretending Mal Edwards looked forward to the nights I showed up at Moonie's as much as I did was the most shining of them all. Hey. Mal rapped her knuckles on the bar in front of me, same way she always did. Her voice was low, a rumble of decadence that rang through the high-pitched excitement of the room, that pitched straight to my gut. Good to see you. Likewise. Happy Pride. Mal snorted. Your usual? Yeah. Unconsciously, I shoved my thick glasses up my nose, which I tended to do when I was nervous. Damn it. Burnside, Thanks. I always nursed a whiskey neat when I came to Mooney's. At other bars I stopped at on the road, I usually just got a beer. But at Mooney's, with Mal, I wanted a slow burn, something to hold on to keep my stomach warm. I switched up which brand of whiskey I got sometimes, which was why tonight I wanted Burnside. Something local, something to ground me here, to this town, where I only spent half my time, but which still felt like home anyway, by now. Mal slid the glass tumbler across the smudged countertop. I reached out. Our fingers brushed for a moment. The tip of my forefinger against the side of her thumb, before she withdrew, wiping a rag resting in her other hand across the counter. This was another thing I thought she only did with me. Left her hand on the glass a little too long. In my mind, Mal would never willingly touch anyone she didn't want to touch. It was only half a second, a few times a night when I was here, when she brought me another, when she brought me the glass of ice water she always had on hand after the second one. But for those combined seconds, Mal chose to touch me. Or I chose to touch her, and she let me. Either way, it felt like a gift. A moment of softness between us, two not very outwardly soft people. A zap of electricity that got through, short but shocking, like the moment your lungs seized in a gasp, and by the time you exhaled, you couldn't even quite remember if it had actually happened. Back in a bit, Mal motioned with her head toward the crowd still clogging the bar. I nodded, brought the tumbler of whiskey to my lips as she turned away, felt the amber liquid as it slid down my throat, biting and cool, waited for it to do its magic. Tried to convince myself my hand wasn't shaking just the tiniest bit. I was too old for this shit. I didn't want to be nervous around Mal Edwards, worrying about my outfit, unable to control my body. Christ, this was all a horrible idea. There was no reason to ruin this easy thing we had between us. How many years had I been coming here at this point? Enough to make this shabby little bar feel like comfort, consistent, reliable, important in its own strange way. There was no reason to muck it all up now. Except fucking signs. Like my seat being open tonight. Like my damn GP a month ago when my 50th birthday rolled around and inspired me to schedule an exam. The way she'd raised a careful, beautifully sculpted eyebrow and told me my body couldn't take my lifestyle much longer. Like I didn't already know my body was falling apart. Had been for years. I had considered switching from long-haul to regional trucking enough times, even local. Every over-the-road trucker did. Practically everyone I knew had told me enough times to switch. But I'd tried regional once, 5 years ago, and spending all my time on the same godforsaken stretches of I-5 over and over made me feel trapped, underwater, the exact feeling I came to this career to escape. Anyway, I knew plenty of truckers who'd been driving OTR far past 50. The number had been haunting me anyway. 50. It was just a number. Meaningless. I knew that. But it kept whispering its existence in my ear, intrusive and irritating nonetheless. Apparently, the simple fact of being alive for a half-century made a person introspective. Made me think seriously about what I wanted to do with my second half-century while I had it. A nervous throat clear jolted me out of my thoughts. Gin and tonic, please. I turned to look closer at the scruffy-looking white kid who had squeezed in beside me, who definitely wasn't a kid, but Mal always called her regulars kids, and it rubbed off on me. I like your skirt, I said to them when Mal, who had drifted her way back toward this end of the bar, turned to make their drink. Oh. They jumped slightly, as if surprised I'd talked to them, and looked down at said skirt. They wore a plain black t-shirt, but the skirt was patterned with what appeared to be the New York City subway system, colorful curves and right angles against a white background. With a shy grin, they said, "My partner made it for me." Mal returned with her drink then, pushed it across the counter quick and smooth, without even a single chance for finger touches. "Happy Pride," Subway Skirt said to me, another small smile gracing their face, before giving an adorable little wave and heading back to their table. Mal leaned back against my section of countertop, crossing her arms, that secret mouth tilt live on her face again. "I scare the shit out of that one," she said. I smirked, picking up my whiskey once more. Mal always loved the regulars who were afraid of her the most. It was almost funny to me how no one else could tell she was all growl and no bite. Or, okay, perhaps more accurately, mostly growl, little bit of bite. Or, all right, if you were an asshole, all bite. Anyway, what mattered, what I could see, was that for the good ones, behind that icy gaze and her hard edges, Mal was, in fact, nothing but soft. Watching her track her regulars now, always scanning the room to make sure everyone was good, made my chest swell with familiarity and want. Reminded me why trying to shoot my shot tonight could be worth it. Because, when I was honest with myself, all I had ever wanted, since the first time I walked into this place, was to be hard and soft with Mal Edwards. Their girl has a hell of a set of lungs on her, though. Mal motioned with her chin, and I turned to finish watching Subway Skirt make their way through the room. They sat next to a big girl with blonde hair tied in a high knot, in the middle of a full, rambunctious table right next to the dance floor. She wore a form-fitting, low-cut white dress patterned with cherries and turned to smile at Subway Skirt as they slid into their seat. "Oh, yeah, that one." My nerves started to settle somehow when I recognized her. My back slouched, the tension in my shoulders easing. "She sung anything yet?" This was what we did, me and Mal. I filled her in about my favorite stops on the road since the last time we saw each other. She filled me in on her regulars. It might have seemed like surface-level stuff, but sometimes it didn't feel that way. The road was what filled most of my days. Mal's regulars filled hers. Sometimes it felt like this woman, who I only saw once a month, knew me better than anyone. And like, maybe I knew her, too. Not yet. She jutted her chin again, toward the back corner behind me this time. "The best act you've missed so far is that broad back there. Did all along the watchtower. One of the best things I've ever seen." I shifted on my stool, twisted my neck to see a large, bald black woman in a thin tank top drinking a beer at the table along the wall. I released a low whistle, turning back toward Mal. "No shit." "Spectacular," Mal confirmed deadpan. Anyway, she knocked her knuckles on the counter again. "Best taco." I spun my tumbler of whiskey between my hands, a slow rotation right, left, while I attempted to hide a smile. "Tiny truck next to a gas station in Reno. Didn't have a name." Mal nodded. "Those are always the best ones." "I took a picture for you," I thought. I always took a picture these days, to remember for my next trip to Moonie's, for the next time I got to play this game with Mal. Best taco, best truck stop, best night's sleep, best breakfast, best scenic viewpoint. Just as I couldn't remember exactly how long it had been since I'd started coming to Moonie's for the simple act of pining over Mal, I couldn't remember how long it had been since I'd started taking pictures for her, marking things down, making little lists in this journal I'd bought one day at a Flying J in Missoula, preparing for the superlatives she'd ask me about next time I saw her. "Carnitas?" she asked. "Always carnitas," I answered. I wondered sometimes if she knew how much better the game had made my life on the road, how it made me more observant, more on the lookout for new things, more willing to veer off the interstate, find hidden gems where a rig like mine typically didn't go, because it was hard to fit my rig most places, and because the suits would have my ass if they knew I was wasting miles trying to find the best plate of pasta in Tulsa for Mal Edwards. But I was good at my shit, had been a loyal employee for decades, and every company in the nation was desperate for drivers these days. The suits could handle a few out-of-the-way routes every now and then, to find the best hash browns in the Twin Cities, to take another picture, add to another list. I didn't pull out my phone to show Mal the photo of the taco truck outside Reno, though, because she was still busy tonight, even if she was making time to start the game. And, anyway, it was embarrassing. I'd only shown her the photos once. A year ago, during last Pride, when Mal had actually had ample backup. Time to talk more. When I'd had a dangerous third whiskey. When it had seemed like something shifted. When we'd talked about more than her regulars, my favorite stops on I-80. It had still started with my stops, though. I'd gotten out my phone to show her the view from this truck stop in Idaho, and she'd leaned further across the counter than she ever had before, our elbows locked next to each other, my screen lighting up her face. And then I'd swiped to another photo, and another. And she'd brought out her phone, shown me some of her own photos of her life, her sister, her cats, her garden. It had felt, well, it didn't really matter how it had felt. Foolish, probably, a little silly, sharing photos on our phones like we were at camp, showing my ass, probably, that I documented my life for her. And then I'd left, because shortly after last call, I'd remembered I had nothing to offer her. Back in a bit. Mal glanced over her shoulder. Get ready to tell me about the weirdest roadside attraction when I get back. As she walked away, I was reminded of the problem. I'd already seen all the weird roadside attractions. I was on the road more often than not. Mal deserved something better than that, a partner who would actually be there. I had pictured it more than once, what it would be like to touch her, to hold her, to sleep at her side. And immediately after allowing myself the frivolous luxury of these fantasies, I would picture her getting hurt, something happening to someone she loved, and I would be thousands of miles away delivering TVs to a Costco in Culver City. All right, friends and family, the karaoke jockey, a cute little thing named Kiki, crooned into the mic. Welcome to the stage, Preeti. A woman at Subway Skirt's table stood and made her way to the mic. She started singing It Ain't Over Till It's Over, and I drank more whiskey. All those reasons why I didn't deserve Mal still rang true, at least as of now. Even if my body was falling apart, it wasn't like I was planning on retiring tomorrow. And even when I did retire, I had no idea what I would do with myself when I retired. I didn't know how to be still, in one place forever. I hadn't been still for 30 years. Being in motion suited me. It healed me. Part of me worried that once I finally stopped, all those bandages and scar tissue that being on the road helped me build would start to unravel, sutures coming unglued. And so it was possible that even when I wasn't gone half the time, I'd have even less to offer Mal. Yet 5 and 0 continued to haunt my brain. Dr. Singh haunted my brain, her smart, sympathetic explanations of all the ways my back was fucked. Half a century gone. Every day since I'd walked out of that medical office, I could feel my future rolling away from my feet, curling unseen into the distance. In short, I was scared as shit. And I hated being scared. The only thing that scared me more than my future was finally telling Mal Edwards that I loved her. Because even though I knew it probably sounded ridiculous, I was pretty sure I did. I'd never treated love lightly, didn't have a ton of it growing up, had never handed it out freely. But sometimes you just knew that a person was made of the same stuff as you, that you never felt quite as at ease around anyone else, that even after knowing them for years, the first sight of their face every time you walked into the Moonlight Cafe still made your heart squeeze. Half a century gone. Might as well start with one scary as fuck thing. See how the rest went. Mal hadn't brought it up, that last Pride when I'd shown her the photos and then snuck out before last call, and all the times I'd made it back to Moonie since then. I sure as shit didn't either. I'd wanted to kiss her. Well, wanted to kiss her more than usual the next time I came in last summer and she'd slid me a whiskey, asked me about the best donut I'd found since my last visit, like everything was blessedly normal. But here I was again, in my favorite chair, in my favorite flannel, during another Pride, ready to blow normal apart, if I kept my courage. After all, if you couldn't tell a butch you loved her during Pride, when the hell could you?
2. Mal and June. All right. I rapped my knuckles against the bar again, even though I'd already done that too much tonight. Shit. June was going to notice I was being weird. Best cup of coffee. Another slow smile rounded her lips. She had the gentlest smile, June Davis. It always made the left side of her glasses shift up, closer to the edges of her short, dark hair, and I had to look away. She smiled like that every single time I ever asked her anything. Most people who entered this place either ignored me outright or acted like I was the dykey witch of the West. And I was good with that role, had cultivated it. But for some reason, I barely had to say boo to June to make her look at me like that. Like I was very cute and had just told a very clever joke. It unnerved me every time. Over the years, though, it had also become familiar, a balm. This bar was part of my bones now, but there were nights when things still got to me. Particularly screechy karaoke singers, particularly rude assholes who thought the world belonged to them, who gave me attitude for not being able to serve 5 people at the same fucking time. The owner, Lou, being particularly more useless than usual. On the treasured nights when June showed up, that smile always smoothed any ragged margins, sunk down into my chest like honey. That one's a repeat, unfortunately, June said with a grimace, as if this would actually disappoint me. There's this little diner in Reading, Rosie's. Don't know where they get it, but they have the best damn coffee. Fairly decent pie, too. Coconut cream? Coconut cream was June Davis's top flavor of pie, followed by blueberry, followed by banana cream. Not this time, sadly. June lifted her tumbler to her lips, but an apple raspberry that was pretty respectable. Motion from the other side of the bar caught my eye. Back in a bit, I said, the sorry refrain I had to say too many times to June, often right when we were getting into something good. But this time, I actually didn't mind moving away to refill vodka tonics and rosés. The more distracted I could get by my actual job, the less I'd have to think about the 2 tickets in my back pocket. Because every time I thought about those tickets, I felt like a bit of an idiot, and wanted to punch my sister. So, Britt had said during Cam's barbecue a few weeks ago, bumping my hip too hard as she sat down at the table, like she always did when she was going to say something annoying. Pride's coming up soon. I'd lifted a brow. And? You gonna ask me to wave rainbow tassels from my tits at the parade? No, she waved a hand. You know Cam and I do that without you. I was just thinking, she took a slug from her beer, about what you should do if June Davis shows up. I scowled. Fuck me for telling Britt about June and last Pride. How I had finally been able to jump into June's lap and do whatever the hell she wanted. Until I'd turned and she'd been gone. Serve her a whiskey and finish my shift without wanting to strangle anyone with a rainbow Bud Light banner? Britt just looked at me and sighed. I pointedly looked away, over Cam's tangled backyard. It's been almost 5 years since Olivia left. I'd looked at her then. What the fuck, Britt? I was aware how many years it had been since Olivia left. But you know what? It really didn't matter how long it had been since Olivia left, because I had been fine. Olivia leaving had taught me some shit, and then I'd gotten over it. What I didn't understand was why Britt was bringing her up now. She stared back, irritatingly uncowed by my fuck you stare. I'm just saying, Mal. In those 5 years, the only other woman I've heard you talk about is June Davis. I rolled my eyes, turning away again. June's just a regular. Except it felt like a betrayal when I said it. The just was dishonest, and I didn't consider myself a dishonest person. So I amended it immediately. My favorite regular, yeah, but still a customer. I'd been tending bar for near 20 years now. My body was pretty well broken from it at this point. Apparently spending most of my life on my feet wasn't great for me, but I was good at it, and I followed the rules. Such as, don't fuck your customers. Because then they came back, expected more. And it wasn't like Mooney's had security. I was the security, basically. And Lou probably wouldn't see me having fucked someone and it being awkward now as a good enough excuse to bounce them. If some woman came back looking for me, I was trapped behind that bar until she decided to leave. A nightmare, essentially. The truth was, I rarely had the desire to fuck anyone anyway, but still. It was a mistake I'd only made twice, and not since my early 30s. Except I had a feeling if I fucked June, or expressed a desire to do so and she didn't return the feelings, she simply wouldn't come back at all. I told Britt pretty much everything, but I didn't want to tell her what that thought did to me. Britt, though, probably already knew. The hag. She shoved my knee with her own. Mal, she said, quiet. Your whole body relaxes when you talk about her. I've never even met her, but I'm half in love with June Davis just from the way you say her name. Why did I even talk about June with Britt? How humiliating. She spends a lot of time on the road, I said. Even though I knew saying such a thing was admitting defeat to Britt, and even though I didn't care that June spent a lot of time on the road was part of who June was. How could I hate it? I'm just saying, she said after a long minute of silence, wherein I made a determined plan with myself to never mention June to Britt again. Pride feels like a good time to be brave. And then she'd gotten up and left the table. I had dearly wanted to follow her and pummel her into the grass, but my knees hurt, and it felt like too much effort at the time. Brave. Fuck my sister for implying I wasn't brave, just as Olivia had implied. I knew Britt would never mean to hurt me the same way Olivia had hurt me. Britt had made her feelings about Olivia well known from the start, but damn if it didn't still hurt anyway. I'd found the tickets online that night, after the barbecue. Hadn't gone out looking for them, but the ad had shown up in my email, and something in my brain had followed through without thinking about it too hard. Although I'd spent the 3 weeks since then thinking about it real fucking hard. I had paid to get the actual tickets rush delivered to me, so my grand gesture to the woman of my dreams would be more than an email confirmation. Brandy Carlisle at the Gorge. I had no idea if June actually liked Brandy Carlisle. She wasn't exactly a popular karaoke choice. Every now and then a bold bitch tried to sing The Story, but even that was few and far between these days. So we hadn't discussed Brandy outright before, but I'd gotten to know the general flavor of June's tastes after however many nights she'd sat through karaoke at Moonie's with me, and it felt right. Hell, Even if I didn't know a thing about June's tastes, she was a dyke of a certain age. She was bound to like Brandy Carlisle. And there was no...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?